And we're back. We're here with Stefania Pecore. She is an independent AI and data science expert. Uh, Stefania's area of expertise lies in natural language processing technology, and she has a passion for leveraging that technology to enhance communication. She has worked through different industries like education, manufacturing, biotechnology, and also in interactive media like video games.
Yeah.
Uh, Today she's going to give us a little bit, a little taste of her world, and I'm sure we're all going to be a little richer for it. So, with that, Stefania, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here. So, okay, today we are going basically to talk about my experience in different industries and how generative AI, in general AI and NLP, have changed a little the industry's mentality, but also some people's daily life, we can say. So, introduction already perfectly done before. I will add just some point. So yeah, I obtained my PhD in NLP in 2019, and then from there I worked into different industries, different roles and levels. I'm also very active in the community. I'm a Women Take Maker by Google, and I'm also a Women AI ambassador. So if you are listening to this conversation and you are interested in joining the tech world, please don't be afraid to contact me. Let's talk about that. I joined UNESCO Women for Ethical AI program. I've been appointed by UNESCO as an AI expert, and I try not only to stay updated with the last news about responsible AI and ethical AI, but also try to make sure that I can contribute around those topics. In general, I really love academia. I have a research background, and I really believe that innovations are important. At the same time, we need also to try to convey all those innovation into the industries. So I love to have these work between industries and academia, trying always to honoring industry standards and pace. If you want to add me on LinkedIn, here's the link. So, first of all, why generative AI and NLP are or might be used in different industries and roles? That's a very interesting question. So, first of all, one thing that I always notice during my career as a consultant is that no matter what is the industry, we usually have a shared challenge. So we have sparse information and we want to know more about our users. Users can be, for example, people that will use the products, but also our employees. So we want to know better the people, and we have a different type of data, and we want to make sure that we can understand the global vision from those data. We can also have structured data, but it's a lot. And one person or a team of people cannot reasonably try to understand patterns in a efficient way, like without spending months and months. So from the sparse information, we usually people want to understand the reality. They want to understand, to have a clarity and be inspired to create more from that kind of information. And no matter what is like the department or the industry, I saw this effort and this challenge in every department I worked with. So this is the first motivation. So use AI in order to be helped in understanding the reality around us. The second big motivation is using AI NLP to boost the productivity. So there have been a lot of studies about that. One in particular from September of last year basically studied how consultants work with AI. So they measured the productivity of this team of consultants. They established an average. They try also to see who was above and below the average. And they asked to this consultant to do some task in an aware way. What does it mean in an aware way? In a way that they were able to do the task with the support of AI, but they were still the master of their task. So they were using AI, knowing what they were doing. So in any case, no matter their level, there was a boost of productivity in their performance. Of course, we see a gap that is more on the side of the consultant that were below the average performance, but there was an increase. At the same time, the same study was able also to show that when we use AI in a way that is more on the passive side, the productivity was not increased, it was decreased. And that's very important, especially not only as a, we can say, expert in AI when we build our products, but also as a user. We need always to understand that it's not the machine that will do the job, it's us that will do the job with the support of a machine, of a model. We'll see how this is so important, especially in the last part of the presentation. So we explored why generative AI and NLP might be used in different industries. Now, how? So, personal disclaimer, of course, what I'm showing is only a portion of what we can do. More is out there to be explored. There are new models, new things that we can do almost every week. So, of course, I will encourage you to explore more and to try. Probably the best part is trying to understand the concept behind and not the type of model, because as we also seen today with the different presenters, this is something that is in constant evolution. So first use case, artist. So let's think about the artist side, which is controversial. So let's think about typical day of an artist where they are building a character, or they are building a design for a product. And at some point, their director will call them because, for example, there can be investors. They want to know more, or a potential investor. And they want to know more. They want to see the subject and have really a flavor of what will be the product. So the director will basically ask to the artist, can you please sketch different types of environment or attributes for the subject that we want to sell? So of course the artist is able to do it also without AI. Is very good at evoking concepts that refer to the size or to the product in general, that can work with the project and are in line with the project. At the same time, sometimes they don't have enough time. They have too much work on their plate. So probably they need some prototyping that is done in a very easy way and especially in a rapid way. So one thing that we can propose is something that is called diffusion model. There are a lot of different diffusion models, but the general idea is that we have a model that will observe images, and then what we will do is basically add in the diffusion process noise until we have basically an image that is not recognizable anymore. In the second part, the goal will be to train the model to understand what is noise and what is the image, and trying to denoise, so reverse the noising process, in a way that basically can at some point understand what is the image, how we can build the image, or how we can predict the image that we are expecting. So diffusion models can work really well in the occasion where we want to work with the artists. And usually we have two types of diffusion models. we have the one with condition and the one without conditions. So the unconditioned generation simply means that once the model has been trained, we don't have really a way to condition the behavior of the model. So basically, it is used for exploratory art, or if we have like very particular task to do on those images. Then there is another family of model that are called conditional generation models. So basically, the generation is conditioned by some inputs. For example, in our case, it might be other images or text. So we want to influence in some way what we will see as a image in return. And this is very good when, for example, we have a subject and we want just to change something around that subject. So the proposition in that case has been, first of all, trying to understand from the point of view of the user, so our protagonist, what are the key concepts in keywords, in sentence, around the image, the concept of the art that he wants to create. After that, we took basically a large language model that was fine-tuned to create a prompt for image generation, and we connected to the image generation model. And we were finally able to transform those concepts, those initial concepts, in images. It was used in this case Dreambooth. Why? Because basically it allows to have, for example, the character fix and then to modify attributes that we want to modify. Of course, right now there are many other solutions that not only not always involve code, so they are also user-friendly. Some need to be paid, some are free. Any multimodal model right now can do the same stuff. Some proposition that I have that I also used more as a suggestion and not in real projects are tools like Lexica, OpenArt, Automatic. It's really interesting, Imagen 2 and ImageFX by Google, because you can basically create your image and then you can also do the in-painting. So you can change parts of the image that you really want to change. It might be the position of an arm in your character. So they are really interesting, especially when you want to sketch images. Now let's go to another use case. Let's talk about executives. So usually executives have a lot of information around. They need to read a lot. They have a lot of documentation. Sometimes they need, and this is a true story, they need to revise videos of like class for their employees to make sure that the content will match for what they want to convey to their employees. So basically they have a lot ongoing. So they are very specific in their request. They know what they want. They only need some support in making everything rapid and especially summarize the content so that they can basically have the important info for their next action. So when we talk about summarization, we usually, especially for text, we usually have two strategies. So let's see this document. On the red lines, you see the most important part of the document. So you have two strategies. First of all, you can do what is called the extractive summarization. So basically, you will take the most important sentence and then you will extract those and create your document. Then you have the second strategy, that is the abstractive summarization. What does it mean? Basically, instead of reporting directly the sentences, you will generate new sentences using the information from the most important sentences. So the difference between the two is that the extractive, I think it's the oldest one. So basically, the idea is simple. The execution is a little more tricky, but basically we have the raw text Then we will create an intermediate representation. We'll try a way to scoring the sentence, because then we want to select those sentences. After that, we have our beautiful summary. So in order to create the intermediate representation and to score the sentence, there are different strategies. You can use statistical linguistic features. So it might be word frequencies, it might be inverse sentence, use of stop words, or word sentence, and so on. Then you have the machine learning approach. Usually it's more on the clustering side. So you want to understand what are the groups of concepts involved in the text, and the most important one, so the most recurrent one. You can have also probabilistic approaches. So you will use Bayesian or hidden Markov models, trying to understand the saliency of the sentence. And there are many other approaches. It all depends also on your side of the AI. But that's interesting because it means that, however, we can approach this kind of stuff from different angles. Then we have the abstractive. So usually when we talk about the abstractive summarization, we are talking about transformers-based architecture. So the image that you see on the left is a simplification of a transform-based architecture. Because usually, no matter what is the type of model, we have two blocks. We have the encoder and we have the decoder. And what they do is in a simplification way, the encoder will basically process the input sequence. So it will try to understand what is the most important part of the input of the words or the token that is trying to read, and then it will convey to the decoder what it has understood, and then from the decoder we will have a generation of new content based on everything that has been done before. So there are a lot, again, of transformer-based models. One thing that I use in a real use case is basically Pegasus, which is an abstractive summarization model. It works like many other models that are based on masked language modeling. The only thing is that in this case, since we are summarizing documents, we will not take into consideration words, but more the sentences. But the idea is that basically we want to make sure that the model is able to understand, once we mask a part of the sentence, what is the most probable sentence that will be it can be used in that context. So we'll try also to basically create a generation based on the gap that we create. And after that, we will retrain the model in order to better understand the type of styles and also the type of summarization that we want to do. Again, there are other ways to do these kind of things. We can use some of the tools that are out there that most of the time they don't require a data science team to do this. Some knowledge, of course, but sometimes I really see also executives use this kind of tools because they are easy, they're user-friendly. From the very famous ChatGPT to Perplexity, we have from Google Gemma and Google AI Studio, and Claude and Mistral AI. Now, let's go to the third and final use case, HR. So HR, the work of HR is basically to understand how the company is doing in terms of their employees, in how can be improved their retention, and what are the things that can be changed, and especially what are the things that can be changed in the vision of the company. So what happens is that, especially when you have companies that will become very, very big in a small portion of time, is that they will have a lot of report from the history of the employees, but they will not have the infrastructure or the time or the people to analyze them. because there is also sort of culture that needs to be built before starting to do some analysis on how we can improve the retention of employees. So when you arrive in that part, the problem is that you have a lot of data. So how you can really understand all that data and find the patterns. So while the HR is very good at understanding what are the typical situations, especially the ones where they can act upon, they need something to structure the info. So in this case, basically, we can define with HR, again, the importance of the user as a protagonist of the story. We can define with them what are the labels that correspond to the typical stuff that can happen when we talk about retention, for example. It can be the salary perception, it can be the relation inside the team or outside the team that we are analyzing, or the progression inside the company, and so on. After that, we can basically try to apply those labels. And there is a beautiful model that is called DiBerta. Again, it's a transformer-based model that is able to understand the connection between the concepts and also the words that have been used, so that you can basically use it in a set of documents to understand, for example, patterns that are inside a team, or you can just apply it in a single document for the person level knowledge. So basically, you will be able to understand at the end of the day if in those documents, what are basically the threshold for the labels that you have chosen, and also the threshold of those labels compared to the whole document. Because we need, however, to see what is the level of those, we can say, complaint or anything also positive that can happen. And at the same time, you can also add, for example, a sort of forecasting model that can predict what are basically the action that can create or not create friction with your employees. Of course, this is only one part of a project because it requires more than only the AI part. So, of course, there are some shared challenges among industries, and we have today also some personal responsibility. When you are before a proof of concept, but I will say also outside the proof of concept, you need to be like you will have a lot of skepticism and fear, which is totally normal. And sometimes I also encourage this because I don't like, again, to use tools with extreme optimism. We want always to be critical on what we do. Sometimes you will have also companies that are not ready there. They don't have the infrastructure, they cannot afford the scalability, or they don't even have a plan for data governance, which is extremely important to understand what you are doing with your data and how you are also handling your user data. Of course, there are some industries that will have major issues and challenges for intellectual property. When we use any generative model, especially models that we don't have any track of how they have been built, we don't know if we can incur in plagiarism or ownership concern. And also the training data sometimes is very hard to be found, or it might be found, but it's very hard to transform it in a way that can be acceptable for the model. And there is a big portion of how we store the data and how we can make sure that we can mask the important personal information from that data. And do we need to also storage the data? Everything will basically work in terms of also on the quality of life of the model that you are building. So you don't want to have a model that will work for just 2 weeks or 1 month and then it needs to be put it away because there are different problems for the model or outside the models. So again, concerns for IP. And you have also, as a user that will create the model, the problem of the interpretability, because you will not stay in that company for like forever, and you want that model can be understood by people that will come after you, but it can be also understood by people that need to use it now. So with the interpretability, we can also make sure that people will trust what we're doing. So responsible AI and ethics is very important at this point. Since I would say in the last 2 years, we see really an increase of importance of these topics because we have people that we have fear of lose their jobs, or again, they will try to use a tool without thinking twice of what they're doing, or they will say that the tool is guilty of something because it was some tool that told me this, so this is the truth. It's not true. Or they will think that generative AI is the solution for everything, which is not true. We have a lot of different stuff that we can do that will not take into account generative AI. But I think the most important part is basically we need always to balance the AI as a tool. So try to have fun with that, try to find a support, but always trying also to think that we are humans. We are the ones who will use the tool, and we need to always preserve our critical thinking because it's the most important part at the end of the day. And that's important, especially because we want to make sure that when we create when we create our tools, or when also we are using it, when we are producing content, or when we are observing content, we make sure that we can understand concepts such as misinformation and disinformation. So trying to understand is what I'm reading, what I'm seeing is real or it is fake. We want to make sure that when we create a model, we adopt any measure that can avoid tracing back the source. So, for example, one thing that I can imagine is like if we build a model for healthcare, we don't want to have problems in terms of we can understand what is the content that has been trained the model, so have all the information from the patient. And again, this is also a problem of how we handle the data. We don't want to for sure create bias propagation. I remember one of the first thing that I saw when I was reading the material from UNESCO is the difference of typing schoolgirl and schoolboy. Usually we have sexual content on the schoolgirl side and not on the schoolboy side. And this is a form of bias. And of course, if we use everything that is from the internet without thinking twice, we can propagate this kind of bias. And we can also have a part of the population that is more represented than the other. So we incur in the marginalization problem. And speaking of this, there is also a portion of the population that cannot afford what we do to train our models or to use our model. That's important to say because sustainability is one of the things that is not advertising a lot. There is a study that has been done by Hugging Face, if I remember correctly, where they saw that one request for a typical chatbot can basically incur in a complete phone charge. You can imagine 1 month of using some chatbot, what it can happen in terms of sustainability and energy. It's important also to understand that we don't build AI only to build AI. We want to make with AI a better world. So we need to pay attention on how we use the AI again and how we can have an impact on the social world. So again, if we think about misinformation and disinformation, it can have a really bad impact on mental health. It can have an impact, we saw also on the politics part. So the perception of reality can at this point change. And we need to be aware of this as a user and also as a designer. And we need also to increase the literacy of the other people that are around us. So to finish, the accountability is something that I really like, because again, sometimes we basically think that there is this misconception that machine play the central decision-making role. Like it's the machine that has done this, it's the machine that is telling us this, when at the end of the day is really the human behind that is designing, that is building, and it's using those machines. And that's why we are lucky to be the protagonist, but we need also to make sure that we do the right thing. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Stefania. That was quite expansive, and I really enjoyed the differentiation between extractive and abstractive. Um, there are so many considerations
Yeah.
before we even look at implementing AI or just using abstractive generative AI function, um, bias, and all these
Yeah.
governance and keeping a lineage of all the material that has been used to train or fine tune these abstractive layers. Um, yeah, everybody's just running to ChatGPT and implementing it in their day-to-day operations, but
Yeah.
they
Exactly.
they
We don't
haven't.
know what we are doing.
Yeah, they haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg of all the things. Um, Pragmatically, are there like guidelines or checklists to guide people through how to use LLMs responsibly, at least at a superficial level?
So I will say there are guidelines. So everything is evolving, because there are some regulation, but they depend on the country, and they're also building those kind of laws. We can say that we have both guidelines for the user and also for the designer. For the user, it will be always to double check again what the product is creating as an output. So, for example, if we think about ChatGPT or other tools of this way, trying to double check the reply. Just always think that that tool is the starting point, it's not the finish line. This will help really to use it as a support, because we will be more knowledgeable. And at the same time, sometimes we can also basically create an alert if we see something that is weird and we should not see. The other thing that we can do, for example, for the image, we can try to use some tools that will try to figure out to reverse or maybe to predict similar images, because at that point we can, for example, see if we have some art that is uh, is uh, is there, and we can discover. At that point we can also say, okay, do I really want to use that image or not? In terms of builder, there are a lot of metrics that we can use to understand if our model is safe or not. From the human perception, like we can read the output first of all, but then there are some metrics that are special for LLMs to understand the consistency, to understand if there are any bias, and also to see if there are any problematic, we can say, content. Probably people that use already some tools, they saw that sometimes we have a change from week to week. Some tools are very free, some tools then they become very restricted because they are tweaking how to use those metrics and the threshold. So definitely we have some tools. Again, it's the beautiful part is that we are the protagonist, so we can act upon the output. So that's the best advice for me.
One really big takeaway from this presentation is the requirement of basic natural language processing terminology and the methodologies that can be used, and what methodologies are being employed statistically through these LLMs, these language models, or these multimodal models. Being able to understand the configuration of techniques that is coming out of the gate through the natural language processing framework, that would be really helpful for people to understand the limitations, and then also
Yeah.
what other skills or areas of expertise they need to invest to learn. For example, the extractative for me seems like an obvious solution to support seeking the lineage of information, or the provenance
Mm-hmm.
where you extract information from, and then you would use like an LLM in a safe environment.
Yeah. Yeah. There is that, and the other thing that sometimes, like, often I saw, especially when you have companies that are just building these tools, they don't have monitoring in production, which is a huge mistake. And it's a big problem because you need to constantly understand, is the model like acting in a weird way, and why? For two reasons. First of all, because sometimes the data change, so you need to update the model. Sometimes you can have an attack from someone else, and you don't want that. So probably everything that is related more on the machine learning ops right now is very important to learn, or at least to have in our companies. Or if we have students that are listening right now, that's a very good it's a very good discipline that you can start learning, because it will be extremely important in the next years.
Excellent. And yeah, thank you for pointing out all these holes. There's so much work to be done. How do you observe a model when it's just like an amalgamation of tokens? How can you contextualize that and make it safe if it's all just a mathematical operation that we can't symbolically reason with, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there are some way to make it more interpretable, but I will say the important thing is that when you are building the model, you need to have not only the AI expert to understand how to change the behavior, but also the expert on the basically the discipline you are building the model for. So if we think about healthcare, you cannot build a model for healthcare without having the healthcare people with you to make sure that you are really understand what is going on. Then you will have all the technical stuff, but I think this cooperation is essential.
I feel like I could talk to you for like a couple hours. So with that, we're gonna well, thank you, Stefania, for the wonderful presentation. We're gonna have to do it again. We're gonna take a short break, and then we're gonna come back in about 25 minutes.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much.